Hey everyone, I am back later than I intended, but well, we're here. And I'm here for a short period of time because I have to catch a flight tomorrow and I have a lot to do between this point and when I depart. Welcome to Zenny62 on YouTube. This is my third live stream this evening, and you're about to get the real reason why the planned and proposed Las Vegas Stadium Authority meeting was canceled. And this is for those of you who missed my earlier discussion. I roped it into my Don Webb live stream, but I always intended to break this out as a separate presentation because of its gigantic level of importance, which is even more so in light of the Las Vegas Review-Journal and my friend Rick Villoda's piece, where it was clear that he was being spun by my good friends at the Las Vegas Stadium Authority, Stephen Hill and Jeremy Aguero, who claimed that the reason tomorrow's meeting was canceled was because they didn't have the stadium development agreement prepared. All right. Now, here's the deal. The stadium development agreement, and thank you, welcome everybody. Welcome to Zenny62 as you come on in the room. Thank you for the compliment, Rick Rice. The reason they claim the stadium development agreement, the meeting's canceled because the stadium development agreement is not written. Now, folks, if you followed the proceedings of the Las Vegas Stadium Authority, you know that not having a document ready has not stopped them from holding a meeting in the past. They simply mentioned it for discussion, said it wasn't prepared, or words to that effect, and they went on with other business. They had other business to take care of for the 25th meeting. Most notably, you have the UNLV Oakland Raiders joint use agreement, which still hasn't been approved by the Stadium Authority, let alone Clark County. You have, the Regents approved it. You have, and this gets to the real reason, the community benefits portion and the work associated with that by law, far from done. And it's created a political scandal that I'm about to recite to you in what I wrote specifically for this presentation. And I did give it its first airing earlier today. Here's the final one. It goes like this. Originally, Steve Hill, president of the Las Vegas Stadium Authority, LVSA, or actually chairman of the Las Vegas Stadium Authority, LVSA. I'm writing president and chairman of the Las Vegas Stadium Authority, had an extra meeting to help move the process of approval of the 14 primary documents, the 32 in all, associated with the development of the Oakland Raiders Las Vegas UNLV NFL Stadium. That January 25th meeting, the one that would have occurred tomorrow, called for the introduction of the first draft of the Stadium Development Agreement, the main document outlining what kind of facility the Las Vegas Stadium Authority would expect to see built. It also would signal the process toward getting all the documents signed and done before the May 16th, 2018 deadline was on track. Well, a major political power struggle based on race has emerged to cause that meeting to be canceled. As part of the Community Benefits Agreement, that is when the Southern Nevada Tourism and Investment Act, that gave life to the Raiders UNLV Stadium process, a benefit oversight committee was to be formed. As of now, that group consists of 2 appointments by Nevada Governor Brian Sandoval. One of those he gave to Senate Majority Leader Arron, and one by the Stadium Authority itself, and 3 by the Oakland Raiders. The committee, as developer, the committee would be ran by a chairperson who fills that seat, and that's where the nasty racial politics has bubbled up to the surface and caused the January 25th meeting to not only be canceled, but the web page associated with it completely deleted, along with its links to documents on who's eligible to be a candidate for the mantle of chairperson. The effort of staffing the Community Benefits Committee has been politically charged from the start. For example, the original list of committee and chairperson candidates did not include Latino Chamber of Commerce Executive Director Peter Guzman. Then a letter advocating that his name be put in for consideration was submitted by Tommy Wright, Laborers Union Local 872 representative and Las Vegas Stadium Authority board member, and was on the agenda for the January 11th meeting until it was removed from the same agenda. Then Mr. Guzman's name was added to the list. At the January 11th meeting, which I attended, the subject of who would be the chairperson came up, and it became clear that Nevada Contractors Association Executive Director Sean Stewart, said by my sources to be aligned with Mr. White, emerged as a frontrunner. The underlying feeling among many people of color involved with the LVSA as board members and as observers, as told to me, is that the overseer should be someone of color. Sean Stewart is white. The existence of this problem and the perception of a number of the same people of color involved with the LVSA is that the Raiders are on the side of Tommy White, and that White backs Stewart and Guzman to be on and in charge of the committee. Meanwhile, Las Vegas Urban League Executive Director and LVSA board member Keith Evans is also a candidate for the chairperson position, but is not favored by Tommy White. Thus, among others, not just Mr. White. Thus, in truth, with that and some other factors I'm not at liberty to explain at this point, the Oakland Raiders are seen by some in the Las Vegas contractor communities of color as not fully supportive of an agenda that favors jobs for their community. The end result is the LVSA action to form the Benefits Oversight Committee has been postponed, and it's not clear if these issues will be resolved by the next meeting set for February 25th. Moreover, all of the documents that are outstanding remain just that, with no extra meetings scheduled to wrap up review at this point. That not only includes the development agreement, but also the still not approved LVSA approved Raiders UNLV Stadium Joint Use Agreement. Meanwhile, Mr. Hill, in this update, told the Las Vegas Review-Journal that the Stadium Development Agreement, which no one has seen the draft of and was not posted on the website, will be presented March 1st, just 1 month and 16 days before the May 16th deadline. I need to correct that. That's actually not 1 month, because that'd be March, April. That would be 2 months. 2 months. 2 months and 16 days before the May 16th deadline. So that is the real reason why we don't have a January meeting. It even goes deeper than that. Because of the awful political rancor that would certainly be on display at the January 25th meeting, what with the public comment period being dominated by people, mostly African American, complaining about the process, and who knows what else would ensue from such a meeting. In order to avoid such a terrible show, a very terrible show, they made the decision to postpone it. And then Hill, seeing the tweets from me, among others, but mostly me, thought, you know what, I better put this out here to give another reason why the stadium meeting for the 25th of January was canceled. Now, of course, Mr. Hill's going to bristle at my take, but look, I repeat again what I said a few minutes ago and what has been the case before. there have been a number of instances where the Las Vegas Stadium Authority was in a position where certain documents were not prepared to be signed. In fact, that has been the case more often than not. How else to explain why we're in a position right now where the vast majority of documents, heck, all of them except one, or two if you count the joint use agreement, have not been approved when all the documents were supposed to be done October 17th of last year. That means we've had meeting after meeting where documents weren't ready, yet those meetings still went on. So to say that the 25th meeting was canceled because the stadium development agreement wasn't ready just does not pass the smell test. It just simply doesn't. And I say that with all due respect to the people I've come to know as I cover this, but history is not on the side of their explanation whatsoever. And with that, I will now go to your comments. We've got, let's see here. Richard Lucero says, haha, silly, Vegas Raiders football is for Oakland. Stay in Oakland. More thumbs up, guys and gals. Thank you, Crawford371. Malconton, how are you? Malconton says, oh boy, this is getting good. Very bad. And as Crawford very poignantly added, get your popcorn ready. To which Rumi Gomez gives a thumbs up, and Crawford says, forever Oakland, Ray Grizz, Russ stay, relentless, choke the Vegas deal out. Richard Lucero says, looks like the ship is sinking in the desert. Oh, wait a minute, there ain't no ocean in the desert. Haha. Oakland Raiders, yep, that sounds much better. Black Lion says the underbelly of the owner of the Raiders is becoming exposed with all this Vegas business. I wouldn't go that far. There's a tough adjustment there. Joshua agrees, says, what do you think happens with all this, Zen? I think what happens is that it's already happening. People are getting harmed. You have situations where, look, I'm going to tell you something that, and I'm going this far. You see, this is the edge of the paper, okay? I'm going right to the edge, dilly. I'm going right to the edge of what I can tell you right here. But someone is planning to file a gigantic, humongous lawsuit. That's coming. And I found out about that today, okay? I can't say who. The person that told me this says that they know, they being the stadium authority, know that this is coming. And that's all I can tell you. So this, how that's going to impact, and when I say giant lawsuit, it has nothing to do with what we stand for Oakland, the Oakland Fan Coalition of Forever Oakland's working on. I'm talking about within Las Vegas and Nevada politics. Okay? This is thick. And it's getting thicker, and it's getting deeper, and it's getting nastier as we progress. I mean, think about it. Why else would the Raiders go to, or excuse me, the Las Vegas Stadium Authority President and Chairman Stephen Hill go through the extra step of making absolutely certain that an alternative point of view regarding why the meeting was canceled was posted in the major publication of Las Vegas, the Review-Journal, okay? And I'm not taking, I don't mean to cast aspersion on my friend Richard Vallota, who wrote it. Hey, he got the guys who are running it to give him a quote. They undoubtedly called and gave him a quote because that's how they work it in the town at times. Fine. That's what's happening. And so now Pride and Purpose says time for them to flush the toilet. Barry Lee says, but what about the Bunny Ranch or whatever? Black Lion Supreme says, wow. And Rick Rice, I can't believe you're actually asking me who my sources are and where I heard it from. You actually didn't ask me that question, okay? As if you expect me to give up my sources. Okay, Blue Lens says, so I joined late. Give us the top 3 reasons why this deal won't happen. I'm not going to because these are obstacles to be gotten around, and they could be gotten around. The point of all of this is that this project has more, far more than the usual number of hiccups associated with the stadium development project, and for one big reason: it was done in haste. I said this before, and I will say this again. I'm certain that UNLV will get, at some point, its new stadium. What I don't quite know is how that end result is going to look. Okay, that's what I don't know. There are a lot of problems. It's not if it. Let's take a giant view. All right, an overhead drone view of this. If it isn't the stadium tax that isn't producing enough revenue to afford the bond issue they want to float, it's the gigantic cost of infrastructure that has been heaped on the Raiders. If it's not the parking at $200 million, it's the law. And I'm not talking about Clark County. I'm talking about the Southern Nevada Tourism and Investment Act that says the Raiders have to pay an adequate amount for infrastructure improvements, off-site transportation, highways, etc. That law has been poured into the infrastructure development agreement that I was attempting to ask Mark Bedane about, but I was nice to Mark Bedane because I didn't ask him if the Raiders are going to be able to afford the price tag that came along with it. Okay? Now, if it's not that, you have to remember all that's added to the relocation agreement cost, right? That's $370 million. And then you've got the on-site infrastructure improvements and the water drainage problem where the north end of the facility, when I saw it after 5 days after rain, was still waterlogged. 5 days after the resumption of rain. 5 days. And that was for a rain that lasted, what, a day and a half? Imagine if it lasted for 3 days. So if it's not that problem, then you've got this political problem with who gets how much of what with respect to the work to be done on the stadium. And it's a gigantic problem because we're talking about a state that does not have a mature system of negotiations and of laws and negotiating processes to make absolutely sure that women and people of color get their fair share of work in any public works project. That's the problem here, okay? And here comes the NFL, and because on top of all that, it's high profile, people you normally would never have heard of before suddenly take the spotlight various times. So those are the primary problems with this. Now, as I talk to you about this, we have the Redskins planning for their new stadium. You don't hear about any kind of political problems like that with them. You've got history, like the Dallas Cowboys didn't go through this kind of problem. The San Francisco 49ers built Levi Stadium with relative ease. There are a litany of examples within the National Football League of how a stadium process should go, and this one is not the model, okay? It is messy, and it's only getting messier. The messier it gets, the harder it is to determine the outcome because there's so many moving parts where the gears aren't quite meshing, they're not quite matching up, all right? So I'll get to your comments, all right? Now, Blue Lynn, I gave you the deal. And we've got, hey, John Marks, I say welcome. And Crawford says San Diego needs to follow with a lawsuit also. Okay. And Crawford says the law office of John Marks is in. Eric Young, how are you? Blues Lens, thanks, you're very welcome. And Barry Lee, how are you? Barry Lee asks also, how are you doing? And Literature Zero says mess. And Mike Allen Ninquist says Mark Davis is losing his chips against the house in Las Vegas. And you know what? That is a very intelligent observation. Black Lion says this is turning into a fate of Joe Pesci in the movie Casino situation. Barry Lee says, I'm good. Hennessy says, why would Bank of America continue with this deal if all is going on? Why not just say we're out? Well, Hennessy, because, and this is something that you have to remember, because in different ways, this question has come up before. For example, with the bond issue. I'm going to explain this again, and I'll say it again and again and again. When you're in the position of selling a product, all you care about is the sale. In the case of Elliott McCabe with Bank of America, all he cares about is creating an argument to get the loan. Now, having said that, the Raiders haven't signed the non-relocation agreement, so the Bank of America is not officially involved. Okay? The Raiders still have to sign the non-relocation agreement. That hasn't been done. They have to approve the stadium development agreement. That's been pushed back. They have to get the guaranteed maximum price. We don't even know what that is. And which, you know, just reminds me of something. How the hell can we have the stadium development agreement before we get the guaranteed maximum price for the stadium? The guaranteed maximum price of the stadium is supposed to come first, and then the development agreement. So both of those have to be pushed back, which indicates there's some other piece of information out there that isn't being publicly shared. All right? So, wow, another problem. Another problem. They're really, really flirting. They're starting to get to a point where they're flirting with that deadline. That's precisely what's going on here. It really is, okay? It really is starting to get to that point where Blues Lynn says, if the Raiders win a Super Bowl with Gruden, will these problems get solved faster? One has nothing to do with the other. One has nothing to do with the other at all. Nothing to do with the other, okay? But getting back to my point, Hennessy, these are financial instruments. These are products to be sold. So as long as McCabe gets a sale, he doesn't care about the rest of the Raiders' problems. Because at the end of the day, under a certain scenario, they may wind up owning the Raiders' leasehold. So you tell me why Bank of America should pull out if at the end of the day it winds up having this gigantically huge prize and then something else. And again, I remind everyone else that's involved with this, in terms of the bond issue at $750 million, it's still the largest deal of its kind in sports. So the bond underwriters are really just frothing at the mouth to do this thing. And that's why it's a general obligation bond, which means the taxpayers pay. Now, the big red letter question is, will the Nevada Taxpayers Association, will the Nevada electorate get wind of what's happening here with these revenues not coming in and kill the bond deal before it gets started? You have to remember, the bonds haven't been floated yet. Mark had said he hoped that they would get done by April. Think about this. Now that the development agreement's pushed back toward March, it's got to push back the time which he thinks, Bourdain thinks, the bonds are ready to be sold. This thing is in trouble. This is officially in trouble. All right? So you talk to me about, or you ask me about, okay, Zen, when is this going to be in trouble? Hello, folks. It's right now. These are hurdles the Raiders have to get over. If Mark Bourdain can overcome this in a way that saves the Raiders money and gets them out of a certain financial problem, he's a genius. Okay? He's a genius because he's in charge of this. Right now, this is on his lap. It always has been. How he handles this is something that we all have to watch going forward. We have no choice. All right? So, and Hennessy says also the sponsorship money they need. That's correct. But see, in order to get the sponsorship money in place, right now, they've got to present evidence that they're actually going to get this thing started and done. You know, it's one thing to have all of these ducks in a row, but then not have sponsorship. But here's why I say that, okay? If this were a really hot market, Las Vegas, if this was something that everyone thought should be done, then you would have an organization like Farmers Insurance having written a gigantic $700 million naming rights check without anything having been done. Nothing. No development agreement, no clear design, just rights. And yet that's exactly what happened in the case of Los Angeles. Farmers Insurance coughed up a $700 million naming rights agreement just sitting there waiting to be used. What did Farmers Insurance get out of doing that? Because it's Los Angeles? Exposure, name recognition, media talk. All right? And really, all they had to do was make a pledge. They didn't really cough up any money at all. It was a pledge. Nothing happened. If Vegas as a market had that kind of cachet, we wouldn't be talking about where the sponsorship money is. Even as the Raiders advanced this far along in the project. Okay? But the simple fact that they haven't done that should serve as a red flag to you. If it doesn't serve as a red flag to you, I'm telling you, it's a red flag. It's a red flag. So, Richard Lucero says, so you might as well call this Maze Runner because it's getting blocked everywhere. That's interesting. You know, that's an interesting one. Blue Lynn says, we'll put a nail in the coffin. That's hard to predict because there's so many, look, there's so many nails in this, the coffin is already set, okay? The question is which nail will go in, and the other question is, will the Raiders push hard enough to keep it from closing? That's what this looks like, all right? And with each month that we go where these documents and processes are not done, that situation becomes worse. That's where this is. Oh, and then, by the way, there's the rain situation. We could see, like it or not from Bourdain's perspective, a situation where the bond issue isn't established for another year. That's quite possible. Stephen Hill pointed to this last year at a Las Vegas Stadium Authority meeting when he said, when the discussion regarding the GOP tax bill came up, that there was one scenario where they would actually postpone selling the bonds and keep collecting money up to a point. So you keep collecting that money up to whatever point they suggest, like let's say they get 200 million saved, that would reduce the bond issue itself to 500 million and then reduce the debt service that had to be accounted for over the remaining years. All right? So let's say that they're taking in 30, 40 million a year for over a 2-year, 30, 40 million a year over a 4-year period. If they're taking in 40 million a year, that's 160 million dollars. So you're talking about reducing the bond size from 750 million to 600, well, not 750 million to 610 million, all right? Which would almost get them there, almost. They really should get it down to what the original subsidy was, which is 550 million. That's the point at which the Raiders said they were going to walk. But here, that begs the question. If that scenario comes to pass, and it looks more like it could now more than ever, the question is, will the Raiders want to wait until 2022 or 2023? All right? That's how all of this looks, folks. That's how all of this looks. Okay? That's what's happening. Now, anybody who says, oh, that's not the case, you'd have to demonstrate why it is the Raiders are on track. And right now, that's harder. It's more harder. Is that such a term? That right now, that's harder than ever. There you go. Okay? Rick Rice is correct. Vegas is a nightmare. Rick Rice, absolutely right. You're dead on, man. Pride and Purpose says, Chucky has already told Mark Vegas, Vegas is a no-go. Awesome. Awesome. And Crawford says, and the Warriors winning the title also rolled into Christmas, Thanksgiving, the 4th of July. Richard Lucero says Mark Davis is on cloud nine because he's got his boy, aka Chucky Gruden, back, his second love. I get you. I get what you guys are saying. So wait a minute, are you all saying something that now is causing me to think? Are you saying that now that Mark Davis has John Gruden, he's less enthusiastic about Las Vegas and more likely to, maybe pull out of Las Vegas? Is that what I hear you all saying? That maybe that love is there? A friend of mine, I said this before, and I'll say it again. A friend of mine made an observation. He's a Las Vegas type. We were having dinner in Vegas. He said that Las Vegas is good at getting you pregnant. And I said, what do you mean? He says, well, it gets you pregnant and then it walks away from you. I said, what do you mean by that? He says, well, this is how he put it. He says, it's good at getting what it wants, and once it gets what it wants, it's done with you. And I said, well, in the context of the stadium, what is that something? And he said, I don't know. I think I know. And I believe it's UNLV. And I think once what UNLV is supposed to have is in place, then that's enough. That's just my hunch. I'm still trying to figure that out and how it applies here. I'm not saying that what he said isn't the case. He knows Vegas like the back of his hand, because he was running down different scenarios of waves that Vegas is on. First it was roller coasters. Everybody had to have a roller coaster. New York had to have a roller coaster. And I think there was some other hotel that planned a roller coaster, but then they didn't have the money to build it, so they never built it. And then he says, now it's sports, and someone's gonna wind up holding the bag on sports. All right, that's what he's talking about. And so, going over your comments. Malcontent says, I'm looking forward to the next JPA meeting. Hope to hear about the Coliseum lease extension. Definitely. And Manalog says, maybe Chucky said, I'll come back if you stay in Oakland. Rick Rice says, I don't think so. And he said, could happen. Here, Eric Young says, hallelujah. John Mark says, I'm still going to file a court injunction in Oakland next year. Okay. Blue Lynn says, Vegas fans brag all the time they're going to steal the Raiders from Oakland. Which, that's too bad. The Vegas people who say that ought to be interested in growing teams on their own. That's why it's such a joy to watch the Las Vegas Golden Knights and develop its fan base, so rapidly. Rick Rice says, in Mark's mind, getting Chucky is just making these lame duck years less painful for Oakland, in Mark's mind anyway. So it's 1:50, folks. I wanted to share that with you, but I've got to now shove off and get some sleep. But in the words of Carol Burnett, it's so nice we had this time together, just to have a laugh or sing a song, just when things get started, and before you know it, comes the time we have to say so long. And I'm not gonna wiggle my ear. I love that. Carol Burnett, one of the great ones in America. Heck, the world. All right. Anyway, I will see you guys. All right. And as John Marks says, you can bet your last money it's all going to be a stone gas, honey. It's kind of been that. Love, peace, and soul, Crawford. As John Marks would say, watch horror films. Keep America strong. Thank you all very much. And yes, dilly dilly. Dilly dilly. Dilly dilly. Oh, that's great. Good evening, friends. Thank you, Black Lion. Eric One says, you sure was. That's right. Dilly dilly. Dilly dilly. I got to get a dilly something. I had to do maybe something. I'll figure out. All right. Bedtime for Zonzo. Whatever. All right, I'm out of here. Dilly dilly. Good night, everybody. I will sleep well, Mr. Marks. See you, Barry. Oh, Barry Lee asks, Zinni, is it possible that if this Vegas deal falls, it will bring more legal troubles for the Raiders court from Vegas? Yes. It is very possible, and that would happen before the deal falls. Just keep watch, okay? This is, like I said, it's getting worse. I'll see you guys. Good night.